Welcome back to AEW Change The World, but this is not an episode of Tuesday Night Dynamite. Instead, this video will mark the end of the series with AEW MSG serving as the final show in the save. There's a number of reasons for this, but with AEW proper starting last week, I felt now was as good time of any to end this save. It was initially planned to last 1 year from Double or Nothing to the May 2020 pay-per-view, so with that said, I'm going to fill in my future plans and particularly what was always scheduled to be the big moment to mark the end of the story. I'm going to go through the plans via the prism of the 5 championships within the company, starting with the tag team titles. With the Lucha Bros holding the men's championships, the plan was for them to hold onto their titles until that May show, which had tentatively been named All or Nothing. Going forward, there were thoughts to bring in a couple more tag teams to the division, particularly Impact's LAX and the Chris Brothers. If neither of those had come in, Angelico and Jack Evans were planned to turn their attention to the tag team division, with either them or SCU taking the next tag team championship shot. Pentagon and Phoenix were then planned to move on to face the Young Bucks, who after back-to-back pay-per-view defeats would question their future as a team. Losing to Chris Jericho and Pac at MSG would send them back to the bottom of the tag team division, with the story going into the May show being the question marks of whether they are still a top level tag team. Having faced the Lucha Bros twice in AEW, winning in May and losing in November, the match would have been the tiebreaker between the two teams. On the women's side of the tag team division, Ivelisse Velez and Mercedes Martinez were always my top choice to be the first title holders, with Sadie Gibbs and Heidi Katrina their potential first challengers. We would also have had to build up a few more teams in this division, with Kylie Rae's first victory at the MSG show leading to her teaming with Santana Garrett full-time. The big names to be brought into the division were Ali and Rosemary, who would have been challengers going into the 2020 May show. The idea being that as one of the few pre-established, well-exposed women's tag teams on the scene, they'd be ideal opponents for the dominant Velez and Mercedes Martinez. The 5th title announced in the company, like the women's tag team championships, the junior heavyweight division never really had the chance to flourish, but it was certainly set up to be a success. MJF as the first champion was a decision made for storyline reasons primarily, with him not necessarily having the typical junior in-ring style. Of course, this would be a big bone of contention with him doing exactly what he does best, getting under the skin of everybody. The rest of the division will be populated by some of the guys who we'd already featured, the likes of Matt Cross, Darby Allin, Joey Janela, as well as the recently signed David Starr and Brian Pillman Jr. MJF's key contender would see a story come full circle, with Marty Scurll confronting the arrogant champion. Most likely placed on the episode after the March pay-per-view, Marty Scurll reaches breaking point, seeing MJF hold the title following a dominant non-title victory over Jungle Boy. MJF would stand tall in the ring, holding his championship in the air so long that he was practically begging for somebody to come out and confront him. When Marty Scurll obliged, the storyline would begin, leading to a match at the May show. Their rivalry, of course, going back to the very start of this save. At AEW MSG, relative newcomer Tenille Dashwood became the Women's World Champion in a match that she wasn't really supposed to be in. While Britt Baker would have got her title rematch, the long-term build was to a singles match between Tessa Blanchard and Tenille Dashwood. While Baker and Dashwood's rivalry continued, Tessa would be sidetracked by the increasingly bitter yet dominant Madison Eagles. Coming off the back of her defeat to Hikaru Shida, a more ruthless streak would see Eagles run once again through the entire roster, leading to a March confrontation between her and Tessa Blanchard. When Blanchard overcame Eagles, the stage would be set for the one-on-one match for the AEW Women's World Championship at All or Nothing. The story for the Men's World Championship was less clear, but would continue on the episode of Tuesday Night Dynamite following the Madison Square Garden show. This would be done through a heel turn for Cody, it being solidified. The ending of the show would see Cody bring out Kenny Omega to declare him the better man, only for a debuting Stu Bennett to take the champion out with an elbow to the back of the head. With the Young Bucks not at the building, Hangman Page and Marty Scurll's attempts to help their friend would see them taken out from behind by MJF and Shawn Spears. Cody would stand tall to end the night. This group would later become known as the Nightmare Family, Cody declaring war on the rest of the Elite. His bitterness stemming from the feeling of alienation from the rest of the group, his wife would later join the Nightmare Family after announcing that she had become a full-time member of the roster. The Elite versus Nightmare Family would be the focus of the build to the March show, with Cody once again losing to Kenny in the main event. From there, plans had not been finalised, but would have relied on the availability of a number of people. Several names considered including a rematch between Chris Jericho and Kenny Omega, a debuting Jon Moxley, or the idea I was warmest to, Kota Ibushi. Ibushi's arrival would have been around March, with Cody's group looking more dominant and outnumbering the Elite, perhaps having added a couple more members. Whether at the end of that pay-per-view or more likely the episode after, an attack on an isolated Kenny Omega would have seen Kota Ibushi make his surprise debut in the company. Similar to the deals of Kenny Omega and Chris Jericho, Ibushi being allowed to cross the boundary from his New Japan deal would have seen us build to a Golden Lovers one-on-one match for the AEW Men's World Championship. Of course, the story to that would have been something I'd have looked more into because it would have been the big final piece of the story for the save. Nonetheless, the basis of our AEW All or Nothing show was set in stone, and it would have been planned to take place in the Sears Centre. The plans for the results of those matches hadn't been confirmed, with in-game ratings and other factors to be taken into account over the next 4 or 5 months. Two results which we were certain of would see the Young Bucks win the AEW Men's Tag Team Championships from the Lucha Bros and Kenny Omega retain his title. While the other 3 matches of the night may have felt set up for title changes, I would have been sceptical about too many titles switching hands on one single show. With that huge event completed, there would have been one final episode to the series, the Tuesday Night Dynamite, after All or Nothing. This would serve as our Raw after WrestleMania type show, with the momentum for the next year being set on that episode. The new World Tag Team Champions, the Young Bucks, would be in action, opening the show and picking up a victory. As they stood tall, they would be attacked by the debuting Revival, who would jump the guardrail. The renamed Scott Dawson and Dash Wilder would lay the Young Bucks out, making their first post-WWE appearance in AEW. With their contract set to expire 12 months from the start of the save, I was confident, especially since I'm playing as the owner, that we would have been able to get that deal over the line. Elsewhere, it was likely that Flip Gordon would have signed, albeit we hadn't really figured out where he'd fit on the card. He was somebody else I wanted to bring in before the end of the save, but I'm not 100% sure that would have happened. While the rest of the episode wasn't even close to being finalised, there was a plan for the Golden Lovers to team up in the main event, a rare Tuesday Night Dynamite appearance for the Men's World Champion in an in-ring capacity. Mirroring the previous night, the two would hug and embrace following the match, with the moment once again being put over as a goodbye to AEW from Kota Ibushi. As the two look to close out the show, with a heartwarming moment, a surprise appearance would overshadow everything. Coming out from the back, to the shock of the audience, CM Punk and his wife AJ would have made their AEW debuts, the former setting his sights firmly on Kenny Omega. With that huge moment ending the episode, it also would have ended the save, with a fade to black ending this series.